and that is not my intention with this video. But because the cult of personality is strong, and because people don't rely on principles and morals, they'd rather follow some guy that seems like he's doing a lot of good things. They let go of their principles and they let go of their morals, and their moral compass is nowhere to be found. So I'm just going to ask you a question. How committed to your rights are you? Specifically, how committed are you to your right to freedom of speech? And what would you be willing to accept? Would you be willing to accept an infringement on your free speech as long as it's packaged in an acceptable, palatable way? Because if you'd be willing to get rid of your free speech rights, as long as it's packaged appropriately to where you could actually swallow that pill of tyranny, because that's what anti-free speech is. It's a move toward tyranny. You're not even tiptoeing through the totalitarian path. You're actually, elephant stomping the totalitarian path when you limit anybody's freedom of speech. So when you read the book 1984 and you learn about phrases and terms like wrong think, what do you think about politicians who want to curtail your thinking, your speech, the way you believe, the way you express? I don't care what politician it is. I don't care if they have an R by their name. I don't care if they got a D by their name or an L by their name. It doesn't matter to me. What do you think about free speech, and how much anti-free speech rhetoric are you willing to accept and still call yourself an advocate for free speech? Don't you want to be able to say whatever you want to say? Don't you want to be able to think the way you want to think? Do you think the government has a right to come into your life to tell you what to say or what to think or what to write or how to express yourself? Because that's what just happened today. That's what's going to happen today if he hasn't already done it. But this is something that is basically blown up across the internet. Trump's executive order targets anti-Semitism on campus. Basically, you can't think along those lines. You can't criticize those people. You can't say that kind of thing. Listen to what it says. President Donald Trump is set to sign an executive order on Wednesday, that's today, instructing federal agencies to combat anti-Semitism. That's like saying we're going to fight against terrorism. Well, what a great idea. You came up with a non-physical construct of an enemy so that you don't ever know if you're actually fighting it or if that's actually the enemy or if you're actually defeating it. Doesn't look like, we don't know if you're winning or you're losing, but one thing we know is sure, we can funnel a whole lot of funds to stamp that thing out that we said is our enemy. Got to stamp out terrorism. We got to stamp this out. We got to take care of and take out anti-Semitism. What does that even mean? How do you define it? Who gets to define that term? And then who gets to say, yeah, you stepped across the line. Now we get to violate you because you thought wrongly and you expressed wrongly and you wrote wrongly and you said wrongly. This order includes measures to identify, punish, and deport individuals, including students on visas, who break U.S. laws during anti-Israel protests. So what if they break laws and it doesn't have anything to do with anti-Semitism? Don't you still consider them a criminal? The Department of Justice will also investigate pro-Hamas graffiti and campus intimidation, aiming to address hate crimes while potentially stirring debate over freedom of expression. Of course, it's going to stir debate over freedom of expression. You know why? Because this executive order is trying to limit free expression in the name of combating and making war against anti-Semitism. And why is it anti-Semitism anyway? Why are we going after that? Why aren't we going after anti-whiteism? And I'm not even advocating that we do, but that's not the government's role. According to the Declaration of Independence, what is the government's role? It's the government has one job, if there was ever a job. I'm not even saying that the government is legitimate at this point, because it really doesn't matter if it's legitimate or is legitimate or isn't legitimate. What does the Declaration of Independence say the sole role of government is? In order to secure these rights, governments are established. What rights? In order to secure what? Life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. That is all the goal of the government. So what part of, the government can limit your speech does that fit into? Wait, you're supposed to be here to protect life, liberty, property. It was property, and they struck that out for some reason, the Declaration of Independence, but life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. What if the way I pursue happiness is I like to express my feelings about that particular people group or that particular thing or the way those people over there live? And I like to say it in the harshest terms possible. Isn't free speech protected? That kind of speech? Free speech that everybody agrees with, that's not what the First Amendment's all about. It's about protecting things you don't want to hear that may really seriously, deeply offend you, that may trouble your spirit. That is what's protected. And that is what this executive order takes down. Unless you misunderstand what he's saying, we've got basically charlatans. I hate to call them this, but I don't know what other word to call a Benny Johnson or a Ben Shapiro or those people who are deeply in the tank for the Trump administration. And just like Midas Touch and Brylan Tyler Cohen and David Pakman and all these leftist propagandists we're in the tank for Biden and Harris. All these people are in the tank for Donald Trump, and they can't see past the nose on their face because they are so incentivized by the cheddar they're going to make by being in Trump's corner that they don't even care what they're ignoring, what they're denying, or what they're promoting. So you can ignore, deny, and promote all you want to, Benny Johnson. You're a freaking liar. You're a pathetic liar. He says President Trump to sign an executive order to deport pro-Hamas students on visas that break the law. Well, they're going to say being pro-Hamas is breaking the law. They're going to say being anti-Semitic is breaking the law. And they're going to deploy federal and civil agencies against you if you cross the line of what they think is anti-Semitism. Is that pro-First Amendment? Is that pro-free speech? More importantly, how is that making America great again? It automatically isn't. But you have people right here who say, who's this guy? He's got 34,000 followers. This guy's got 3,100 followers. But there's a lot of people weighing in on this. This guy has 4,600 followers. Trump keeping his promises yet again. FAFO, F around and find out. Josiah Young, thank you for that sticker, man. I really appreciate that. Very generous of you. This is great news. He's doing everything just right. So am I to assume that the people who are writing these X messages, these Twitter messages are from North Korea and they don't have a constitution that says Congress shall make no law respecting the establishment of a religion, and they're not supposed to do anything against, in violation of, or an infringement of freedom of speech? But you can make an executive order saying, hey, we're going to take you down if we find out you're anti-Semitic. We're going to get into this a little bit deeper, but I want to show you the actual executive order from 2019. This is in the White House's own words. And you tell me if you think this is just a little bit concerning, if you care anything about American freedoms. Now, I understand the propensity or proclivity, however you want to look at it, for people to look at me and go, dude, you were spouting off like a leftist libtard, man. What's going on with you? You know what's going on with me? I want to protect American freedoms. I want to protect your American freedoms, my American freedoms, your great-grandchildren's American freedoms. If we don't stand for our freedoms, we won't have any. If we don't exercise our rights, it's like a muscle. It will atrophy. You will lose your rights. And there are psychopaths who want to take your rights away. And the only way they can take them away is if we let them have it. And one of the best ways to let them have it is to embroil yourself and entrench yourself in the cult of personality. I see no evil. I hear no evil. I speak no evil. I don't know what you're talking about. Donald Trump is doing such a good job, man. No, not with this right here. Not with this right here. It says, and this was from December 11th, 2019, by the authority vested in me as president by the Constitution and the laws of the United States, it is hereby ordered as followed. My administration is committed to combating the rise of anti-Semitic and anti-Semitism and anti-Semitic incidents in the United States and around the world. How are you going to do that? How do you combat a thought? Because that's what anti-Semitism is. Now, if you lift your hand against another person and you harm them in any way, or you damage their property, no matter what your reason is, oh, I did it because I hated white people. I did it because I hated the Jays. It doesn't matter what your reason is. I broke into that store because I wanted those shoes. I don't care what your reason was. You broke into the store. That wasn't your store. Those weren't your shoes. And you caused harm. You created an actual victim. I'm not saying that people shouldn't be imprisoned and tried and given their day in court if they harm somebody, threaten to harm somebody, damage property, steal property, and don't, repay it. I'm not saying that. And I don't care what your reason was for harming that person or threatening that person or damaging or stealing their property. It doesn't matter what your reason is. So he's basically saying, if you have these thoughts that are expressed, we're going after you. I'm going to deploy the federal agencies against you. Anti-Semitic incidents have increased since 2013, and students in particular continue to face anti-Semitic harassment in schools and in universities and college campuses. Do you realize when I was in high school, rarely a week went by where I wasn't harassed? But you know what it did? It made me a better person. It made me a more resilient person. When you get bullied, I'm not saying bullying is right, but if you look at it in the right perspective, bullying can actually work in your favor. It can make you stronger. It could push you to do things that you otherwise wouldn't have done. Hey, I'm an expert in, let's say this is somebody saying this. Hey, because I was bullied, I became an expert in the martial arts. I learned how to defend myself. I learned that life is not going to treat me fairly. As a matter of fact, probably at every turn, life is going to want to strike me down. So I better harden myself against the winds that are coming, because they're going to be strong winds. They're going to try to knock me down. But guess what? I'm going to be ready for it. So when you stop this kind of stuff, and again, I'm not saying bullying is good, but I am saying it can be used for good if you have the right perspective. So why don't we treat the right perspective? Well, why don't we teach the right perspective? Why don't we empower people to look at adversity and use it as like whey protein and fuel, so that they can attain a higher plane in life, so they can become a more tolerant individual, a more resilient individual, a more hardy individual? Why don't we do that? Instead, we're going to protect all you people against anti-Semitism. We're going to protect all you people against critical race theory. We're going to protect you guys against the transgenders. And I'm not saying that all that kind of stuff is perversion, but the public school is perverse. That's why I call it the 15,000 hour public indoctrination program. It's the public fool indoctrination program. Do you think they're teaching the right history? Let me ask you, when you were in grade school, did they teach you who really runs this country? Did they tell you that the Zio International Banking Cartel took over this country back at least since 1913? And now they own the issuance and value of all of your currency. That means wherever you work, whatever you do, whoever you meet, they are owned by the Zio Central Banking Cartel. And it happened in 1913 through a whole bunch of intrigue when these very, very rich people met at this place called Jekyll Island, Georgia. If you want the full story on that, look at G. Edward Griffin's book, Creature from Jekyll Island. It is a fantastic read, and that the end notes are about that thick because everything is substantiated in these people's own words. Matter of fact, you can go to Jekyll Island, Georgia right now. There's a museum there, and it says the Federal Reserve was created in this room. They are the owners of the country. So don't give me this, you care about what school children are being taught. Hey, why don't we stop stealing from the American people in property taxes so we can fund the failed public fool system? Don't give me this, you care about children thing. They have literally entered a gun-free zone. Their lives, the lives of your children, are in the hands of government officials who don't care about them. And the only people who will be able to enter those gun-free zones are people that don't obey the rules. And do you think your teachers care? They obviously don't. Most teachers have weighed in on this issue. I don't want to be carrying a gun. I teach mathematics. I teach history. I teach social studies. I don't want to be responsible for carrying a gun and protecting these children. Okay, then tell me that the moment that gunman is making his way down the hallway and your door is next, and all you could do is barricade it with books and desks. That's all you could do. Now you're just waiting. Don't you wish you had that gun now? Of course you do. You don't wish you had a cell phone so you can call 911, because when seconds count, police are minutes away. Don't give me this, I care about the school children, therefore we got to get rid of anti-Semitic rhetoric and critical race theory. Why don't you open your eyes and realize that the entire system is built on fabrication, lies, deception, and it can only be funded by the funny money from the Zio International Banking Cartel, known as the Federal Reserve, which is neither federal and they don't have reserves. Title VI of the Civil Rights Act of 1964 prohibits discrimination on the basis of race, color, and national origin in the program activities receiving federal financial assistance. That's hilarious. It prohibits discrimination. Have you read the original documents of the founding fathers? Did you know that they owned slaves? That's pretty discriminatory, don't you think? Now, I'm not sitting here trying to knock the Constitution, because I think there's some good things in the Constitution, but I agree with Skinner. Skinner said, whether the Constitution be one thing or another, this much is certain. It's either authorized such a tyrannical government as we have, or it's been powerless to stop it. In either case, it's unfit to exist. So for example, how does the Constitution protect you in any of the 50 states, specifically New York, New Hampshire, Connecticut, Rhode Island, New Jersey, California, if you decide to strap an AR-15 or a AK-47 on your back? You know how fast you would be in prison in a hot New York or California second. Wait a second, I thought I had the right to keep and bear arms. This AK-47 is on my back, therefore I'm bearing an arm, and there is no restriction in the Second Amendment. Do you think they care about the Constitution? They don't. And every single one of the law enforcement officials in the states that I just mentioned would actually imprison you, take away your rights, steal your property, which is your gun, and throw you into a cage. Do you think they care about the Second Amendment? Where's the outcry? If you're such constitutionalists out there, where's the outcry to uphold, protect, and defend the Second Amendment? There's 4 easy words in that, right? 4 easy words. Any 5-year-old, anybody who can read and understand what words means, shall not be infringed. Pretty easy. And yet any gun law is a direct infringement and a violation on the Second Amendment right that says shall not be infringed. They don't have a problem with infringements as long as it's their infringements initiated by their political puppet. It's very interesting, the world that we live in and what people are willing to accept. And the fact that most people are embroiled in hypocrisy and inconsistency to the point where they'll say one thing out one side of their mouth and then exactly opposite at the other side of your mouth. So it's called cognitive dissonance. It's trying to hold 2 mutually exclusive, diametrically opposed ideas at the same time. And then it causes internal conflict, but you're still holding on to both of them. Oh, I'm for freedom of speech, but I'm for Donald Trump. No, I'm for the Second Amendment, but I'm also for red flag laws and common sense gun regulation. It can't be both. You can't have, it's not both. How can you be for shall not be infringed and be for shall be infringed? How can you be for free speech and for the guy who just wrote an executive order trashing your free speech in the name of combating anti-Semitism? Because that's what this is. That's what this is. That's what this is. This is the start of the tiptoe down the totalitarian path. And pretty soon, actually, we are in and have been in a full-on sprint ever since the Federal Reserve took control of the money supply. But this even makes it worse. Because that's right there why I say, if you involve yourself in politics, if you identify with a political party, you have already been demoralized, and it's your own doing. Why do I say that? Because when you enter into politics or the realm of politics, or you start backing a political parasite, you have actually let go of reality. You've let go of common sense. You've let go of all that is right and fair and good and just, because politics is now and will always be the clever and deceptive art of using euphemisms, lies, emotionalism, and fear mongering in order to dupe average people into accepting and even demanding the chains of their own enslavement. So why don't you stop doing it? Then you can stop being a hypocrite. But if you involve yourself in politics, you automatically make yourself a hypocrite, because every single policy, every single law demands 2 things: that it diminishes your power and steals your wealth. And if you're for that, then you can't also be for shall not steal. Don't bear false witness against your neighbor. If you don't want to bear false witness against your neighbor, you better get out of politics, because that's all politics is lies and deception and intrigue. That's all it is. And if you disagree with me, let me know. That's why this channel is not popular. I only got 12, 13,000 subscribers. I barely get 7,500 views every 48 hours, barely. But if you got a Midas Touch or a David Pakman or a Ben Shapiro or a Benny Johnson, They get 7,500 views in less than 30 seconds every video that they publish because they tickle ears. And I ain't about that, because you keep tickling ears long enough, pretty soon you find yourself in a concentration camp, literally. And it's happened in America. Did you realize that in the 1940s, FDR during World War II set up concentration camps for Japanese Americans? They were no charges, no trial, no due process of law. Just you 120 something thousand people, you're going to a concentration camp. There's nothing you can say about it because you're jeopardizing our freedom by your mere existence. Good and kind and noble and honorable neighbors, just because they had a certain look on their face and they happened to be battling somebody across the ocean that had the same looks on their faces, all these Americans were basically guilty until proven innocent. So to the internment camps with you. Do you not think that history will repeat itself? If we don't learn from history, we are doomed to repeat it. Prohibits discrimination. What hypocrisy. On the basis of race, color, national origin. While Title VI does not cover discrimination based on religion, individuals who face discrimination on the basis of race or color or national origin do not lose protection under Title VI for also being, let's see. Okay, so it says discrimination against Jews may give rise to Title VI violation when the discrimination is based on an individual's race, color, or national origin. It shall be the policy of the executive branch to enforce Title VI against prohibited forms of discrimination rooted in anti-Semitism as vigorously against all other forms of discrimination prohibited by Title VI. Do you know what they've been calling anti-Semitism? And I'm talking about even under the Biden administration, and now much more so under the Trump administration. If you breathe one word of disagreement with how Israel is operating things, and that the October 7th thing looks a little bit fishy. I mean, you're talking about the most surveilled, protected wall in the history of mankind on the planet. And yet people with hang gliders and pickup trucks and wire cutters were able to get through that fence when you were just bragging a couple months previous to that a squirrel or a bird can't come near that without your knowledge. It seems awfully fishy, doesn't it? But if you start questioning those things, well, obviously you're against the Jays. What is wrong with you? This is what we wrote the executive order for. You shall be banished by the federal and civil agencies. Unfrickin' believable that the Benny Johnsons of this world. No, it's not. It's not unbelievable that they would promote this and propagate this. The enforcing of Title VI and identifying evidence of discrimination based on race, color, origin, all executive departments and agencies charged with enforcing Title VI shall consider the following: non-legal binding working definition of anti-Semitism adopted on May 26th. We're going to go to this. We're going to go straight to the source on this. The non-legally binding working definition, because that's the question, is what is the definition and who gets to enforce that definition on the rest of us? Adopted on May 26th by the International HCOST Remembrance Alliance, or IHRA, which states, quote, anti-Semitism is a certain perception of the Jews, which may be expressed as hatred toward the Jews. Let me ask you something. Now, I'm not saying hate is good. It's not good for you. It's not good for general society. It's not good for your soul. It's very corrosive to hold hatred in your heart. But let me ask you, if you're not free to hate certain things or certain people, are you really free in America? If you're not free to express that disdain or hatred under freedom of speech, are you really free in America? If somebody writes an executive order, even if it sounds good to your ears, if you really come to the conclusion of, wait a second, this is not a good road. This is like we're treading on thin ice here and we're about to break through because there ain't nothing holding this up, not constitutionally, not First Amendment anyway. Maybe we shouldn't go down this path. Maybe I shouldn't go down out on Lake Michigan in March when the ice is super thin and it gets thinner as you go out to retrieve that football or that Frisbee that we accidentally, threw out there. Maybe it wouldn't be a good idea to do that. Similarly, it's not a good idea to go down this road. As a matter of fact, it is a disastrous idea. And it's crazy to me, still crazy to me, that people on the right do not see this. Because somehow I think that if you make the left look so bad and so evil, and they are, no doubt about it, you can get away with doing some of this stuff that doesn't look so bad and doesn't look so evil, because we can pin that anti-Semitism stuff on the leftist libtards. What the heck? This is literally WWE Dog and Pony Show. Rhetorical and physical manifestations of anti-Semitism are directed toward Jewish or non-Jewish individuals and or their property toward the Jewish community. You know why I'm saying that. Institutions and religious facilities. The contemporary, and let's go to IHRA because it actually says more than this. This is the HCost Remembrance Alliance website. It's hcostremembrance.com. If you want to take a look at it, I will drop the link in the chat so you can see it for yourself. Don't take my word for it. Working definition, they say, of anti-Semitism. And this is the working definition that this executive order springboards off of. This is the Wheaties that they eat at breakfast to empower them to enforce this law, so to speak. Read the full text. So, in the spirit of the Stockholm Declaration that states, with humanity still scarred by anti-Semitism and xenophobia, the international community shares a solemn responsibility to fight those evils. Have you really committed an evil unless you have actually harmed somebody, threatened to harm somebody, stolen their property, or damaged it? Have you actually created a real victim? Have you created a real victim? And I'm not saying that words aren't hurtful. Yes, sticks and stones break your bones, but words will never hurt you physically. But, internally, you can be hurt. But you know what the answer to that is? The answer is not, hey, censor the person who's launching the words that are hurting that person. The solution is tell the person those words are going to come. Suck it up, buttercup. And then you know what you do? You create a whole generation of people who aren't pansies. What does it say? Good times create weak men. Weak men create what was it? I have this thing memorized and I always screw it up when I'm on a live stream. Good times create weak men. Weak men create bad times. Bad times create strong men. So the bad times create these strong men. And then the strong men, and it's cyclical. These strong men create these good times, but then there's such good times that people become weak. They let words hurt them. Literally, when I was in high school, my mom and dad would say, sticks and stones will break your bones, but names will never hurt you. I mean, like, they can't hit you with sticks. They can't throw rocks at you. That would be wrong. That would be a crime. But words, that's all they are, is words. Do you really respect that person's words so much you're going to let this affect the rest of your day or your life? There are people who are driven to because of words. Well, what's the answer? The answer is not to stop those offensive words. The answer is to empower the person who's going to hear those words and go, you know what? The person who said that's probably a moron. So what does it matter? And guess what? There's a lot of moronic people out there. Never underestimate the power of stupid people in large crowds. And there are a lot of stupid people. So the answer is not to stop speech, because one day your speech may be stopped. And what you're saying could be true. So what they're doing is saying, hey, because this is bad, and I'm not saying it's good to be, to look at a people group and talk about how bad they are because that's how they were born. It's kind of cruddy, but you're free to say that. And if I say you're not free to say that, then you know what I'm also saying? I'm saying, hey, I have the right to stop your speech. I have the right to force you into silence. Basically, that's what censorship is. And that's what this is right here. You're forcing somebody by edict into silence. Because if you say that thing we don't want you to say, we're going to get the federal agencies on you. And then you're going to be in some serious trouble. Now that's where real crime comes in. Somebody's actually going to put their hands on you because you said words. Somebody's actually going to deport you or throw you into a cage or give you some kind of lofty citation, some $150, $200 fine because you said something against a people group and the executive order said you shouldn't say that. So now you're breaking the law. So the people who are actually putting their hands on you, these federal agencies, are the ones who are actually violating due to others, which you would want done to you. And if you applaud that, then you better be ready to applaud it one day when they say you can't speak and they're going to force you into silence. Maybe you want to tell somebody about the gospel of Jesus Christ. Maybe you want to sell them Amway and you want to talk about, just whatever. Maybe you like vehicles and the person that you're talking to he's a Ford guy. He ain't a Chevy guy. We need to silence that guy's speech. I know this sounds ridiculous. What if somebody they want to strike out the N word? I know a lot of people who aren't my skin color that dude, it doesn't even bother me. We call each other that. Why wouldn't you be able to call me that or whatever? If you're acting like that, maybe you are it. Maybe you are that. So the Committee on Anti-Semitism and Holocaust Denial, called IHRA, in 1915 to adopt the following working definition of anti-Semitism. Check this out. This is part of what we read, but it even goes deeper than that. Anti-Semitism is a certain perception of the Jays which may be expressed as hatred toward the Jays. Rhetorical and physical manifestations of anti-Semitism and directed toward Jayish or non-Jayish individuals and or their property, toward the Jayish community, institutions, and religious facilities. And then it says, to guide IHRA in its work, the following examples may serve as illustrations. Check this out. Manifestations might include the targeting of the state of Israel, HE double hockey sticks, conceived as a Jewish collectivity. So you can't say anything bad about HE double hockey sticks, but they can give $3.9 billion a year to HE double hockey sticks, and you got to pay for it. But if you say anything against that, well, guess what you are? Anti-S. However, criticism of Israel HE double hockey sticks similar to that leveled against any other country cannot be regarded as anti-Semitic. So they're only keying in on this anti-Semitism aspect, and it's only for a certain people group, the Jays, which is really interesting because you don't see any of these executive orders going on for Black people or white people or Asian people or Hispanic people. Anti-Semitism frequently charges Jays with conspiring to harm humanity. This is very, very interesting. And it is often used to blame the Jays for, quote, why things go wrong. It is expressed in speech, writing, visual forms, and action, and employs sinister stereotypes and negative character traits. Let's say it really does do that. Let's just say it really does do all that. Isn't that protected by the First Amendment? I mean, really, seriously, are you pro First Amendment or are you not? Doesn't freedom of speech protect that kind of speech that can be highly offensive to certain people? Contemporary examples of anti-S in public life, the media, schools, the workplace, and in religious sphere could, taking into account the overall context, include but are not limited to calling for, aiding, or justifying the or harming of Jays in the name of radical ideology or an extremist view of religion. That right there would be bad. If you're calling for that, that would be very, very bad. No sane, rational, loving, compassionate person would ask for this for anybody that didn't deserve it. Making bodacious, dehumanizing, demonizing, demonic, I don't know where that came from, or stereotypical allegations about Jays such as, or the power of the Jays as collective, such as, especially but not exclusively, the myth about a world Jayish conspiracy, or of Jays controlling media, economy, government, or other social institutions. Now, if you talk to some people, and if you do any measure of research, you come to find out that what this executive order is actually doing is curtailing your freedom of speech to come to these conclusions. Are you for that? Are you for that? Because that's what this executive order is going to do. That is exactly what he's putting the pen to paper to do. And my question is, as for this guy as you are, why aren't you against this? Why? Doesn't sticks and stones may break my bones, but words will never hurt me apply? And what if, I'm just asking what if, that's all I'm doing here. What if these words were actually true? Then you got to ask yourself, okay, what is the first casualty in any war? I mean, what thing must go down, take a nosedive, and be buried in the heart of the earth before a certain thing can happen? Oh, that's right. The first casualty in any war is truth, because normal people don't want to go to war. Normal, loving people who love their families don't want their sons and daughters fighting in a banker's war. They have to be deceived into going off to war. There has to be some kind of propaganda campaign like, if we don't go to war, freedom is lost. America will be given to the Soviets. The communists will take over. Which is all a lie. Because if you truly don't want America to be taken over, guess what you do? You eradicate every single gun law in existence. And then what was it that Japanese emperor said? We can't overtake the shores of America because there will be a gun behind every blade of grass. I don't know if that's true or not, but take a lesson from Somalia, will you? The most dangerous, powerful military force in the entire world in the 1990s, in that Battle of Mogadishu, and they couldn't take down the Somalis. Why? Because everybody had a freaking gun. Even kids had guns. They had AK-47s. You think you're going to take all the, well, we could drop an atomic bomb on them. Yeah, well, I guess you could. But then what were you really there for? Don't forget, you got to plunder the resources. So, you got to maintain some level of humanity there. We better pull out. They took those Apache helicopters down and dragged those bodies through the street, those American soldiers' bodies through the street. Yeah, if the politicians are so scared about a communist Chinese takeover or whatever, then why don't you stop being commies, you politicians, and drop all the frickin' gun laws? Stop making it hard for grandmothers and single mothers to purchase a personal protection device so that they can, protect themselves in areas like Chicago or Buffalo or St. Louis or some of the places that are really horrific as far as crime ridden down south. But no, they got to wait for 7 to 10 days. What if in that 7 to 10 days, they fall prey to a guy that broke into their house with a baseball bat? Or even a group of guys with a gun. Do you realize if one single person had an AK-47 and they had a strategic position within their house or a shotgun or whatever, like an AA-12, why are AA-12s banned? Those fully automatic shotguns. If you've never seen the action of an AA-12, talk about a smooth action, very little recoil. Man, if every American home, guys, listen to this. I got a way to dramatically reduce crime. Here, let's do this. Let's do this. If you've never, I bet, put a 1 in the room if you know what an AA-12 is.
In fact, I'll say repeal the Second Amendment.
Sorry, you should watch this video right here. This is pretty interesting. If you haven't seen,
do you trust the government?
Here, let's go to this.
In fact, I'll say
you got to see this. You got to see how stupid people are, guys. Maybe you haven't seen what an AA-12 does in a long time. AA-12 demo. Oh yeah, this is the one. Oh yeah, this is the one. God, man. Just imagine. I'm gonna mute this, but just imagine. I want to show you this in slow motion. And he pulls it out of a barrel full of water. Imagine if every single American household, Chicago, Buffalo, St. Louis, Seattle, every American household had this firearm. Watch this.
You can just so.
I want to show you the light recoil on this. I'm gonna turn the volume down because I guess they key in on gunshots. But I want to show you the recoil as he does this in slow motion. Talk about an easy gun. It resists jamming. Let's see. Let's get to the here. Let me. Oh yeah. Here we go. Watch this recoil.
For about 10 minutes, and we're going to pull it out and see how it operates.
So he left it submerged. He left it submerged for 10 minutes, and he pulls it out of the water. I think the drum, this particular drum right here, can hold 20 rounds and 1 in the chamber. Now watch the recoil in slow motion. And just imagine every American household has at least one of these in their home office, in their home, in their business office, in a school. Look at that. He's barely holding on to it. Very light recoil. How likely do you think a thief is going to, if he knew that the likelihood of the house he was about to break into, the owner had an AA-12, how likely do you think, yeah, and there are still stupid criminals, they'll risk life and limb so they can steal a Rolex watch or whatever, but how likely do you think they would be if they even suspected that an American household or business had one of these things right here? He does not want to be Swiss cheese, and he will probably find a new line of work. Because one thing I know about thieves, one thing I know about criminals is they want a safe working environment. And if they suspect that it's not going to be safe, that's why they go into post offices. That's why they go into schools. That's why they go into federal buildings. Most 90-something% of crimes that happen in America, these mass shooting crimes, happen in gun-free zones. If they thought somebody had an AA-12 strapped to their back or strapped to the front of them while they were sending a letter to Aunt Martha, I think they would think twice before they walked into that place, or they'd try to take him out first. But how many do you think we would have a safer in America that could not and would not be invaded if we had AK-47s, AR-15s, fully automatic rifles, and AA-12s as part of our arsenal? You wouldn't need sanctuary cities. Every city would be a sanctuary city. You know what? An armed society is a polite society. How much more polite do you think they'd be if everybody had an AA-12? I'm telling you, man, I am pro Second Amendment. And that means I don't read any restriction. I don't read any limitation and shall not be infringed. There's only 27 words, guys. It's not a mystery. It's very easy. A well-regulated militia being necessary to the security of a free state, the right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. Keep and bear. What arms? Any arms. Any limitation on magazine capacity? Nope. Ammunition? Nope. Kinds of weapons you can have? Automatic, semi-automatic? Nope. No limitations at all. And yet Congress, which is the opposite of progress, by the way, has seen fit to, for the safety of the public and general safety, the people's safety, the public safety will always be the alibi of tyrants. In the guise of safety, they will create these regulations that do two things. Laws will always do two things. They will cost you money because it takes money to enforce those laws. When they make a law, they want the enforcers to enforce that law, or the word is no good. They're a lion without teeth. They're a paper tiger. And the second thing it does, it disempowers you because it actually infringes on the rights that you're supposed to have because we are people with a beating heart in our chest. That's why I don't even call them constitutional rights. I call them what the Declaration of Independence calls. They're unalienable rights. Nobody gave them to you, and nobody can legitimately take them away. The only way you can lose them is if you use your rights to harm another person who doesn't want to be harmed. It's pretty simple. And then you know what you do? You completely sensitize all Americans to the plumb line of morality. And how do you do that, Brian? Because everybody soon recognizes that it doesn't matter who you are. If you lift up your hand to harm another individual and you create a victim, which is the real working Black's Law Dictionary of a crime, you don't have a crime if you don't have a victim. The state, a fictional entity called the state, cannot be a victim. A corporation can't be a victim. You can only victimize other human beings. You can't even victimize animals. Well, you can victimize animals. I was talking about cows and pigs, and when we have determined as a society, and vegans would vehemently argue against this. They would go, well, you are being morally inconsistent because that pig and that cow's life are worth just as much as a human life. So we're going to get away from that just a little. We're going to step away from that just a little bit. But when you're talking about another human being, if there is no victim, there is no crime. And if everybody got sensitized to that, and we got this standardized moral compass And this plumb line goes straight. Nope, we got to go by the plumb line. This is it right here. And if anything veers off of that plumb line, you can automatically detect it. And it doesn't matter if that person who harmed, threatened to harm, or damaged somebody's property or stole property has a black robe on. It doesn't matter if they have a clown law enforcement costume on. It doesn't matter if they have a suit and tie and call themselves a politician, senator, a president of the United States. If they veer away from that standard, that plumb line, that line of morality, that moral compass, they are a criminal. But somehow we've managed to convince all of society that if you break the laws of politicians, you have committed a crime. Well, how did that work out during Prohibition? The second before midnight when Prohibition went in, what was it, April 5th, 1920 or something like that? So on April 4th at 11:59, you weren't a criminal. You could buy or sell or trade or transport alcohol. But all of a sudden, when the clock struck 12, mysteriously, we don't know how this works yet, but I think it was the legislative pixie dust. All of a sudden, you became a criminal because the most corrupt people on the planet, politicians, said you're a criminal. That is utter BS. And now, because you've become a criminal, now you're doing something illegal or against the law, because now we're in the age of prohibition. Now the law enforcement agents can actually commit crimes against you, but they're not really crimes because they're government agents. How does that work? They're basically saying badges and uniforms grant special rights. How perverted is that? It's truly perverted, but nobody sees it like that because it's like, no, Philip Brailsford can kill Daniel Shaver in the hallway that came to end in Mesa, Arizona, and he can be acquitted of all charges because he was a police officer and all he had to do was say he feared for his life, as he and his other 5 costume clowns were heavily armed and protected with bulletproof vests on, carrying AK-47 or AR-15s, and Daniel Shaver just had a shirt and shorts on, and he was scared to frickin' death. He wasn't even armed. That's why Daria Jalali and Austin Hopkin severely abused 72-year-old dementia patient Karen Garner in Loveland, Colorado, and only get 5 to 7 years. And you and I would have got thrown away for life. That's why nobody in the Arvada Police Department was held accountable when they summarily murdered Johnny Hurley, who just saved the entire Arvada Police Department from a gunman who was specifically set out to shoot every cop that he saw. Johnny Hurley killed that guy, and then Arvada Police Department killed him. It's just like, here, Philando Castile, you prove that you have a concealed carry license. And when he tries to, Jimenez blows him away there in Minnesota. But Jimenez, what does he get? He gets a tap on the wrist. So somehow the magic of Disney is working every day in our lives to the point where we see politicians and we see judges and we see law enforcers as a different class of people than the rest of us, almost like they're untouchable gods. Oh, they can do that. We made it legal for them. But if you did the exact same actions, you'd be going to jail. Oh, you can't lie to a cop because that's a felony, but a cop can lie to you, and that's policy. When are we going to get out of this left versus right perverted paradigm? It's no measure of good mental health to be considered well adjusted to a profoundly sick society. I am here to tell you, and I'm sorry it has to be me, that we are sitting smack dab in the center of a perverted society. How do I know? Because we're saying mental midgets and perverts and morons calling themselves politicians and law enforcers and judges are making the rules for the rest of us, and we're blindly following like a bunch of sheep. And we're accepting crap like this. And they get to define the terms, and they get to call you a criminal if you have wrong think, if you express wrong think. So I'm going to try to keep this under 55 minutes. We're already at 49 minutes. There's more stuff that I wanted to talk about. Let me ask you real quick. Are you pro, and I'm not even talking about the First Amendment here, okay? I'm not even talking about the Second Amendment. I'm not talking about the Fifth Amendment. I'm just talking about your unalienable, and it's not even that you have rights. It's just that I don't have the right to interfere with your freedom if you're not interfering with the freedom of somebody else. Now, if you're trying to trip old people on a bus, I have every right to restrain you and keep you from tripping and hurting old people on a bus. because you're using your freedom to harm somebody else. But put a 1 in the room if you think we have a right to express ourselves, whether it hurts people's feelings or not. Put a 1 in the room if you feel like we have a right to arm ourselves with whatever we want to arm ourselves with, no matter what it is, but without restriction. And who cares about the Constitution? It doesn't matter about the Constitution. Put a 1 in the room if you think that it's just the right thing to do to leave somebody alone who wants to keep 100% of the money they went out to earn so that they could provide for their families with it. I mean, that's what we're talking about here. That's what my channel is all about. I'm calling it the disturbing illusion because it's truly disturbing that we think that there are people out there who have the right to rule us. And we also think that we have the obligation to obey their rulership, or we should be punished by our rulers because we didn't do the right thing and we didn't follow their laws. But you didn't hurt anybody. You didn't threaten to hurt anybody. You didn't steal somebody's stuff. You didn't damage somebody's stuff and not pay for it. Why do you think you did wrong? That's why I'm against traffic laws, because traffic laws are nothing more, nothing less than the opportunity and a justification for law enforcement to put their foot in the door so they can take away more of your rights as they conduct their fishing expedition and extract money from you. They are literally road pirate revenue generators. What else do you call it? You got off of work at 2:30 this morning. Nobody's on the road. Nobody's ever on the road at 2:30 in the morning. So I looked left, right, and I just kind of rolled through that stop sign. Unbeknownst to me, the law enforcer was sitting behind the billboard, and now he gave me a $250 ticket because I disobeyed the law. Guess what? Humanity dictates that law enforcer should sit there in that cruiser and go, good for that guy for running that stop sign safely. He didn't harm anybody. He didn't threaten to harm anybody. He didn't damage property. He didn't steal property. So I'm not going to interfere with his life. But a cop believes it's his duty to give you a ticket, which is economic terrorism. Because do you realize that 70-something%, it's a high percentage, 70-something% of Americans are living paycheck to paycheck. And all it would take is that $250 citation to put somebody under for the rest of their lives and jeopardize the life of that entire family. You know, it's not bad enough that we're taxed to death on the politician side of it, but now we have politician obeying law enforcers who are going to, create another tax system where they're going to take money out of your pocket through, parking tickets, or you didn't activate your turning signal when you should have. Your license plate light isn't properly illuminated. You got to register your car. You got to have forced insurances. You can't do this. You can't do that. Your windows are too dark. Man, get off our freaking backs. Government, you're illegitimate, but if you had one job, it'd be this. You're supposed to protect my freedom to have tinted limo tint windows on the front. I'll deal with the repercussions. And then if I happen to run into somebody and then I don't pay for it, then it should be extracted from my wealth to pay the person that I actually victimized. But that's not how the legal system works. The injustice system works. They equate legality with morality and illegality with immorality. Well, I got news for you. It used to be legal to own slaves. Do you really want to be a part of that system? And it was highly illegal to help slaves get free. So in that case, illegality was morality and legality was immorality. And there's tons of examples like this, guys. So yeah, we live in a disturbing illusion, and maybe, just maybe, because I believe the truth will set you free, and a person who's truly set free is free indeed. He's free in his mind. He's free in his body. He's like, look, I don't tell you what to do. I don't speak into your life. I don't try to steal your stuff. I expect you to do the same thing to me. And if you violate that sacred oath, if you violate that moral standard, then you have become a criminal. If I violate that sacred oath, I become a criminal. My right to swing my fist ends where your nose begins. I don't have any right to lay my hand on your skin. I don't have any right to make you feel insecure. And isn't that crazy? We have a Fourth Amendment that says you have the right to be secure in your persons, houses, papers, and effects. It seems like all law enforcement is doing is working to make you insecure in your persons, houses, papers, and effects. So bringing this back around, Donald Trump is signing this executive order, which is anti-wrongthink. It's anti-free speech. It's anti-American. You can't make America great again if you're writing anti-American executive orders. If you disagree with me, leave your thoughts for the World and Global Thought Police in the comments section below. If you want to support this channel and you don't want to do it through this live stream, I made 99 cents this past hour. Thank you to Josiah Young. We know who you are, Josiah. You have tremendous, because of you, my children will be able to eat, Josiah. Thank you. So I don't make much money at all from this channel, and that's not the goal of this channel, but it would be nice. You know, a worker is worthy of his wages. If you want to support this channel, you can do it through my Cash App. I've been kicked off of PayPal for obvious reasons. I got my Patreon back. I don't know how long that's going to stay, but if you want to, and you want to sidestep the 30% or 40% or whatever that YouTube takes out, yeah, I appreciate it. So thanks for being here. If you want to support more content like this, and also give me links, send me an email, contact@highimpactflix.com, and show me other channels that are actually talking about this, talking about the real root of the problem, specifically in this era, in this nation, is the Federal Reserve. It's the IRS domestic terror cell. It's the federalized police force. They are basically, it's qualified immunity. It's civil asset forfeiture. It's anybody who would violate the golden rule. I'm all about the golden rule. I'm not a Christian, but I am for the golden rule. You know why? Because it is inherently consistent and anti-hypocritical. Why? Because I don't want to be hurt. I don't want to be stolen from. And I assume that if you are telling the truth and you're a moral, honest person, you don't want to be hurt by somebody and you don't want to be stolen from. So if we don't want to be hurt and stolen from, then why are we accepting the agents of government hurting and stealing from the rest of us? Just let that sink in. Remember, the price of freedom is now and will always be eternal vigilance, and indifference to this notion is the means by which the people have and will secure their own oppression. Let's stop securing our own oppression and let's start today. Okay, we did that in under an hour. It's 57 minutes. And I appreciate you guys. If you like this video, share this channel, leave a comment. The engagement really helps. And I will see you guys in the next one. Take care.